All right, we have a special treat. We have an M3 14-inch Pro Max Ultra. Actually not, I didn't double check the serial number, but it's one of the, Pro Ultras, Pro Maxes, the creme de la creme of MacBook. This board is quite different than the M1 or M2 versions of it. The M1 and M2 look almost identical in the same way. Right here I have some donors for the A2918 13-inch Pros. These ones, M1, M2, they're almost identical. Same size, all that. This one has a lot of empty space. Almost comically so. I would say this board is at least twice the size it needs to be. Why that's done, I don't know. They could have fit, more heatsink or maybe an extra fan in the chassis or more battery, but they said we're going to make the board really big. They wanted everything, everything has its own little neighborhood. This is like, we have like, apartments in New York, and then this is like suburbs in Texas for our circuit. So everything's very far away. So maybe Apple was feeling, claustrophobic, and they wanted everything to be nice and spread out for whatever reason. In any case, this machine is not working, and what it does, it turns on, and then after, everything's frozen. Okay, we'll cut there. Essentially, turns on for maybe 10 seconds, and then shuts down. We're at a login screen, it shuts down, and it was liquid damage. It was in a backpack, I think, was the case, and an open bottle of water was in the backpack. The inside of the chassis on this looks fine, and that was actually, main concern on this, there's no board view file, there's no schematic for this machine yet, and it's also quite different from the boards previous to it. Some areas are similar, some aren't, so certain types of problems might be, much more difficult to figure out on this sort of thing. And two is I can get like no spare parts for this thing at all. So if the keyboard was actually bad in the chassis, or the trackpad, or we're kind of shit out of luck, we can't get the parts. Even if for some absurd, short of buying another machine and taking parts out of it, which obviously isn't practical. In any case, Apple Store wants, $1,200 or something. We want less by a good margin, and we will fix it. We're restoring an iPad as well. I'm multitasking. In any case, there's actually very minor corrosion on the board around the Wi-Fi driver. So this is something that has not changed. These M1 machines as well would very, very often get corrosion around there too. Let me fix my microscope cam. 1 moment. All right. Also, we finally got the camera. For some reason, the Elgato camera app doesn't like when I have my phone plugged in and I'm trying to use the microscope camera sometimes. Really, this right here is all I noticed on the board. Otherwise, it's quite clean. There was a little bit of schmutz there. There we go. All right, that's gone. I just rubbed it off with my thumb. We have our CD3217s. All looks well. You can see how much empty space is on here. There's just huge gaps with no components. Interesting. Very interesting. In any case, right, the machine, it stays on. After like 10 seconds, it fails. We have some corrosion here. I think this is all kind of superficial. I think this is our problem right here. We do not have a schematic, but we do fix MacBook, and we've fixed other MacBook before. This looks like a little diode that is near the Wi-Fi IC on the A2918, which is this guy right here. Actually, I have a donor right here. We're basically noticing the markings with this little kind of line and then a zero sort of thing, and it's directional. There's a dot, and then I think what we have is the same component right here. Looks a little bit different, but I reckon this is doing the same thing, and we're at the very least keeping our fingers crossed that it does. And we have this similar thing. We have this cap and resistor near it. There's another guy over here. It looks kind of similar, but a little bit too different. We don't have the same components around it. So these machines get corrosion around this Wi-Fi driver quite a lot. Alright, I've simply closed out of the Elgato Camera Hub app, and now it's misbehaving. I keep losing my microscope camera. Essentially, I think we have the same part right here. There's this guy kind of looks similar, but he's a little bit too different. We have this cap and resistor around it, and we have similar symbols. So I believe this is the same thing, and I'm hoping it does the same thing. We can see our pin 1 on here. We'll go over to our board view. Is this little upper right kind of guy, so it's a little bit biased towards it. So I think directionally our pin 1 on this is with the board in such a fashion. Something like that. So I think first thing I'll do is just clean this off with some alcohol and a brush. And I think maybe this resistor right here is not too happy as well. So perhaps we can judge what this is doing. I'm thinking maybe this could be a different part. We shall see. I also have an M2 air donor board. We might look up that really quick and see if we can maybe find something that looks more similar around our Wi-Fi driver. You know what? This actually might be our guy, and it has 2 little lines. I think this is a better component to use, or it actually might be identical. H1 says PJ or something like that. Let's look at an A2918 board. So PMU reset. I'm curious. Let's see what diode mode measurements. I'm kind of thinking this is probably our guy. Two lines. I think we're gonna try this guy. Okay, so we have our donor board basically in the same orientation as our patient. I'm going to put a penny on top of the Wi-Fi IC so we don't overheat it. Let's clean this area up with a brush first and some alcohol. If this is it, that'll be really nice. There might be some other problems though, so we shall see. You know what? Let's do a little bit of context cooling. I'm gonna peel back the shield on this M2, take a few measurements, and then see what we get on this one. I'm thinking, let's see what kind of reading we get for. So I think this resistor here, the pad's just not going to be connecting. I don't think the actual resistor looks like it's bad. Let's see what just kind of measurement we get on it. We'll see what we're getting. We'll pull up this software. And let's see. .2 kilo ohms. That's a pretty normal resistance reading. Nice and even. 2.2, 2.2. Okay. All right, well, let's get this guy off and replace it with one from our M2 donor board. Now turn on the fume extractor so we do not get the cancer. Put put our penny back on our Wi-Fi IC. The reason you want to add more thermal mass to chips with underfill like this, because if you heat, it's like boiling pot with the lid closed, basically, right? We don't want the water to get hot and shoot out. In this case, solder. If it gets hot enough, it's gonna shoot out of the underfill and screw up the solder under the chip, and then you got to reball it, and you're gonna have a real bad time. We have our airflow at 430C, or we have our hot air station rather at 430C max airflow. I'm gonna take this off, and I'm gonna take off this resistor. Probably will just grab another 2.2 kilo ohm resistor. Get a better. We see, and I saw that pad float a little bit. It's a no connection. So that's good. I think we have the exact same pin out. Looks like we have a no C. We have ground in the lower right. Let's see. We have the same pin out. Let's think about what we're doing. Alright, so that does not seem to be ground on this one. See. So on this no connection pad is ground. If I were to flip that up, I don't think that pinout matches. Let's go back to our A2918. Upper right seemed like it was ground. This is basically the same pinout. So we have something where our upper left pin goes right to ground on the actual board that we have, and it looks like it's a no connection on these other ones. So even on these two boards, this is the same component. It's the same kind of diode. I'm gonna double check on the recording I had for the pin one just to make sure I'm not going insane. I think I've kind of reached we're just gonna have to try it and see what happens. This diode comes up a lot on these boards, M1, M2. It seems to be the exact same pin layout on this or the M2 that I have. I think I still want to just take this one from the M2 because the markings are more similar, is my thinking, basically. So let's do that. Let's just double checking where our pin 1 was. Upper right. Let's grab this guy. this solder look? I think that's okay. Get some more flux. Okay, that's kind of swooping now. And I think I want to close this as well. Yeah, and that pad underneath that resistor looks terrible. We know it's a 2.2 kilo ohm resistor. At least we were able to get a good measurement on it, even though the component didn't look too happy. Okay. Should make a good connection now. We'll probably just grab something off of this two donor. It's probably a 2.2 resistor, probably right next to the thing we removed. Let's see, these are probably 3.3. Okay. Let's see on our A2918. 100K, 10K, I'm just going to go grab some resistors out of a package because we have a bunch of 2.2 kilo ohm resistors. I don't need to get it off of a donor. I'll be right back. You gotta carry the usual suspects. Well, no big deal. I have more. All right. I won't shoot the resistor into nowhere now. Nice shiny resistor now. Small O201 parts, I'm just going to turn down my airflow to like 60-ish, about half what it was before, and this kind of won't shoot off into nothing. I'll keep the heat moving, and it should just kind of flow into place. Alright. And we did add that leaded solder onto the joint, so it's going to lower the melting temperature of the joint, so it should kind of heat up faster. And it swoops into place. I think I'm going to reassemble this now and see what happens. I don't think I can really tell just how it's running on a USB-C meter, basically, if it'll work now. We want to turn it on and stress test it, basically. Something like this, it would shut off, you know, after a little bit, basically. I didn't want to just keep running power through it, you know, until we did something on the board. If this stays on now and I can actually log in, what I'd want to do, actually probably just let it do something like I'll let it run a video overnight, and then the next day I'm in, run Apple diagnostics on it, more or less. We're going to clean off the flux from the board. And yeah, really the top side of this board's totally clean, so you'd really have no clue it was water damaged unless you actually took it apart. Let me clean this off with a brush, some hot air. Okay, I'm gonna put this back together and we'll see if it works now. If it still doesn't work, then we'll look at it more, try to figure out what's going on. My camera just keeps misbehaving today. We just cleaned off the board with a brush and some alcohol just to get rid of any flux residue, and the rest of the board remains quite clean. I'm gonna get this with a Q-tip. The edge here. Hot air 140, and some alcohol on a Q-tip. We're gonna go like this. Especially want the top side to look nice and clean. This is getting too OCD. We're gonna put this back together and see if it works. All right, so initially on reassembling this, actually it would stay on now. I would get no keyboard or trackpad still, which was on the initial notes. And I was actually a little bit confused because I had the keyboard and trackpad reported as not working, but really what I saw is just the thing would turn off after a few seconds. Basically it would shut down. I would see the current drop to basically nothing, and then it would reboot basically. It didn't do that anymore, but I noticed the screen would black out as well after a few seconds. I opened it again, I unplugged the trackpad and the keyboard, I saw the same behavior, and on further inspection I saw that the lid angle sensor had fairly bad corrosion on it. This thing is just totally toasted and burned. So I actually need you need a calibration tool to replace these, and I don't have one here because I haven't needed it yet. So it's a $200 tool. I'm gonna order it and use it probably to fix this one computer, and maybe hopefully some other MacBook comes in with a bad angle sensor, so it's more justified that I bought the tool. But I need to wait for this part. It is basically usable without this thing. The screen basically just doesn't turn itself off when you close it, pretty much. So you need to recalibrate this thing, or it's that, or again, go to Apple with it. So we're gonna order that tool and this flex cable. Looking at the part number, it's an 82103-208-A, the same exact lid angle sensor from the A2442 M1 Ultra. So it looks like they did not change this part at all on the M3, which is cool because there's no parts listed for the M3, but I can still get the one for the M1, and we can calibrate it with the Nerd Tool 1 is what it's called. And then we'll show that process too once we get that part in. So I guess I'll be back in a few days. We'll have an overnight order ship out tomorrow, and then I'll finish up the repair on this basically. We're going to run Apple Diagnostics on this as well, just a stress test, but I think we'll be okay basically. So I suppose I'll be back in a couple days. I'll probably have a different shirt after the next video cut. We'll see. Okay, so we have our little calibration tool, and we have a new lid angle sensor. We already have the new sensor installed. First thing we did was we unplugged the battery on the MacBook. Then we plug in the sensor once it's on the screen like this, close the lid, plug it into the thingy, and then we're connecting 5-volt USB-C power to this. There's a different connector for MacBook Pro. There's one for MacBook Air. This is a Pro. We're plugging it into here. This thing actually doesn't, I just think it's probably not updated yet. The part number on this lid angle sensor is the exact same as it is on the M1, M2 version. This is an M3 machine. The part number on the original cable, which is bad. It was, well, very liquid damage. I did try cleaning it. It still didn't work. Basically, this sensor is bad, but it is the exact same part number as these replacement parts listed as for A2442, A2779. So, well, I guess we'll see if it works now. But everything looks fine. We should have LED 1 solid, LED 2 is blinking. Basically we plug in power, and then we're going to press switch 1 for MacBook Pro calibration, and then LED 1 will start blinking once LED 1 remains on and the open lid light turns off. Calibration is complete, so we're going to let this sit here for a second. And then once this is done, we'll see about how long this takes. It's 11:15 a.m. right now. Okay, so for whatever reason, the Nerd Tool 1 was not working on this M3. I actually had a chance to use it on an M2 14-inch, and it worked fine. The part number's the same, the chip's the same. I don't know why I wouldn't just calibrate the new sensor. But what I ended up doing, because I just got over messing with it, is I just took the chip from the bad sensor, desoldered it, and then I desoldered the chip on a working sensor, moved it over, and that ended up working. So that was the solution to this. We're doing further surgery and transplants to get the MacBook to behave. But that was essentially that, and then after that, this works, which is very nice. So this will be a happy MacBook now, and when the screen closes, the screen will turn off like a good MacBook. So I'll probably put rights-free music for the next 20 seconds, and then we have the end of the video. Okay, so for whatever reason, the Nerd Tool calibration thing just wouldn't calibrate the new sensor. I took the QFN-IC chip from the original sensor, put it on the new one, and that worked. And the actual, the tool itself then detected the new sensor once I moved the chip over fine for some reason. So I'm not sure why it wouldn't recalibrate the new sensors, but transferring the QFN chip from the original one to this worked, and thankfully that original QFN chip on the original angle sensor flex was not bad, or else we'd be very sad, basically. But we can see, I just have that post-it note to cover the person's name. We can see once it closes, the screen goes off, and then we open it and our screen goes back on, which is all the sensor is for. So we're good. We already did stress testing basically just without that sensor plugged in earlier. We showed earlier just the device logged in on like Spotify. I was just trying to open up something where we wouldn't see this person's stuff basically. So MacBook is good to go. We don't need to replace the whole board like the Apple Store wants, or you buy a new computer for $3,000. This will continue its MacBook duties for a long time. And we actually seem to have a pile of some newer machines. We have a 15-inch Air, and we have another 14-inch Pro or 16-inch Pro. The MacBooks are they're getting liquid damaged this last few weeks, so we'll fix them. We'll see you next time.